Thanks, James. James will bring up the deck. Taking a look at chat as well, too. Well, I hope you guys have had a good day. Like I said, I hope you are drying out. Michelle has explained that the Bay Area is not. I think when we started putting this deck together, these were fireworks for the new year. Now I think they're just rain clouds and more of a storm. And James, to the next slide. And the next slide at the bottom does have a bit.ly link. And if you want to click on that, that will take you to today's presentation. We will also send it out this week after the presentation, and we'll send out the recording as well, too. There's also a QR code there on the bottom. If you haven't already, if you could mute yourself. You can use the chat feature to communicate with us. James will be keeping an eye on that, and I'll be keeping an eye on when he's speaking. And just be mindful of your visual and audio surroundings, your backgrounds, things like that, rain clouds that might be passing by. James, go ahead, next slide. James, myself, and Melissa are along today. Megan is on a rain day. She's not here today, but she's with us here in spirit for sure. And James, next slide. James, go ahead. I'm going to mute.
Thanks, David. I just let 2 people in that were in the waiting room, so give them a second to pop in. Welcome those of you just joining us. Please type in your name and school or school district in the chat if you have not done so already. Let's get to something a little fun. What did you get caught up on during your holiday break? Did you get caught up on some sleep? Did you watch some Netflix? Hanging out with family? Anything like that? So we have a new thing that we're going to be using. Last time we used Mentimeter. This time we're going to use Poll EV. And if you haven't used that, I'll discuss Poll EV later on in this presentation. But in the meantime, you can go ahead and click on the link. I believe David just put it on there. Or you can use your phone if you'd like. And you just click on Poll EV, or just go to Poll EV. And you'll have my name, James Hattar 339. And you could start putting in your response. And while we have that, I'm going to show it live. And we're getting some answers as we speak. So, admin program, APA, 3. Let's see, reading for pleasure, best vacation ever. House repairs, a lot of people from the morning was either working on their house, doing some cleaning, or seeing family. Organizing myself, a place for everything and everything in its place. Oh, yeah. Netflix and sleep. Awesome. Anything good on Netflix? Any movie that you got caught up on? Earlier in the morning, in the previous presentation or webinar, I mentioned I saw a couple of movies. One was The Menu, and the other one was Banshees of Inisherin. Irish movie with Colin Farrell. Pretty good movies. Then I got to see my superhero movie, so I saw Black Adam as well. So, or any holiday movies you got caught up on. We can discuss Die Hard as a holiday movie. We can argue about that. More training, Narcan administration, and some rest. Yes, a lot of sleep. Israel, of course. We talked about that. Worked out every day. Awesome. I got to do that too.
This afternoon group today is ambitious. Good for everybody.
Oh, 1899. I heard that's supposed to be good, and then they canceled it. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, Jim, I heard about that. That's supposed to be a good show. Had a big list of stuff. Mostly slept, read, painted. Living room. Okay. Family time. Big Bear for a week. That's awesome. Was it snowing in Big Bear? Yeah. Mentoring, training for CTE Teach program. Yep. Cleaning and organizing, sleep, house repairs, and myself. You gotta take care of yourself. So this, I'll talk more about Poll EV later on, but this is something great you could use with your students or for just your personal use. And what's great about it is that I'm using the free version. So there is a paid version, but you could get away with a lot of stuff in the free version. So we'll talk more about that later. Okay, and let's get back into the good stuff. David, what did you do, by the way?
Cleaning and organizing, travel to the Bay Area.
Gotcha.
Cleaning and organizing. I like cleaning and organizing a lot. I feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
So if you were along with us in December, we talked about getting to the end of the semester. We gave you a tool, the New Year Reboot, and that's that little red link right here. Just how could you reboot for the new year for your mentees, and recharging for January. So if you weren't along with us, it's a little bit of what we did in December, and we want to continue on with that vein today. So James, if you'd continue to the next slide, another opportunity for January for sure, start of a semester, potential start with new classes for your mentees, is goal setting. What are your goals as a mentor for this semester? What are your goals for your mentees this semester? What are your mentees' goals for themselves? And then I didn't put it on, but perhaps it's what are students' goals for this semester or for this quarter? I do find that when you're talking about goal setting, it can be a little challenging, especially for students, to think of it in a timely manner, to keep it realistic. And we've got this infographic on the bottom of the screen, and we will send you a link to this infographic as well too this month. We'll also put a copy of this infographic in your Google folder. We're going to do that with a few things. So it can be a good opportunity for students to set a goal for themselves for the quarter or for the semester in an early class. One thing you might consider doing and talking about with your mentees. James, next slide. And that just gets into the idea of preparing for the new year and opportunities to start mentees off on the right foot for a new semester. As you're going out and visiting classrooms or talking with teachers, Zoom meetings with teacher, is the classroom prepared for students? Is it a prepared place for learning? And one thing that I always experienced is that new students in the class could always change the dynamic. Maybe you lost a favorite student in one period. Maybe there were students who changed from periods to period. Maybe they changed subjects if you're teaching multiple subjects. But you're going to need to get new students up to speed, and that can be a little jarring for a mentee. I've spent a semester with students and now I've got new folks, but I think there's an opportunity to have students who are already existing in the classroom bring the other students up to speed. It gives those students a chance to share the knowledge they got in first semester. You can also assign that type of thing to a second year student if they happen to be in the class as well too. And then another thing, I hope everybody's taking some time and their students to just transition back to the classroom. 2-week break, 3-week break can be a little off-putting for students. They may need a little time getting back into the swing of things, even though they've been doing school for many years. So a second little infographic that we'll share with you as well too. But number one, review expectations, class contracts, responsibilities. You can do that in a game way, perhaps. You can do that first couple of days, icebreakers, an icebreaker week for a couple weeks. If you have short periods, those are great days for icebreakers, I find. And James and I will occasionally go out and sub. And one thing I do in take and roll, I'll kind of count the number of students in class and subtract that from how many are actually there. And then I'm like, okay, guys, who's missing in class? So did the students know who is in class? I was very pleased at the end of first semester, I was out subbing and the students knew exactly who was missing in their class. They had to think about it a little bit, but I think that speaks to the community of a class and the opportunity for students to work as a functioning learning community. Ease into the learning for sure. Probably can't hit too hard on the first day. And then take that time for reflection. I know I skipped number 3, but take the time for reflection and also have a plan for stress management and well-being. If it's that 5 minutes in between classes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, if it's consciously trying to take a lunch break during the day. If you know there's a day that's just good for you for planning, whether that be before school or after school, and for your mentees, I think that can help ease the transition back. James, next slide. I want to talk a couple things about student engagement and increasing student engagement. We just know that if students are engaged in the classroom, if they're interested in what they're learning, if they're invested in their learning, it's going to be more interesting for them. So on the right-hand side of the slide are 6 types of engagement. For example, behavioral, things that we're kind of used to doing. We show up to class, we show up when we're supposed to for the most part. We know there are class norms, turning in assignments, maybe it's signing in, getting a Chromebook, getting a laptop, if it's a school issued device. We kind of know how to operate in the classroom. Cognitive, intellectual, students interested in participating. They have a thirst for knowledge. They're curious about what they're learning and thinking. Maybe they're approaching the teacher with ideas. They're thinking about it outside of class. We've got emotional, kind of what our emotions bring into it, having a good outlook on class or school, those relationships we build and foster and definitely help the engagement and the learning and the trust. Physical, getting up and moving out of the chair. I kind of always said, you're free to get up and move about the classroom to a certain degree. But are there things you can do in the classroom where students aren't just sitting? Are there activities? Is there moving around? Is there action where it's not just a dull environment? For example, acting out a scene, creating a skit, something like that. Social engagement, working in pairs, working in small groups. And this also will give a teacher, and you can certainly share with a mentee, that that gives them some time for a little more close interaction, a one-on-one, a one-on-two, one-on-three, where you can differentiate your instruction a little bit as well too. And then finally, cultural opportunities to look at cultural experiences in the classroom, share about themselves, share about their culture. So there are others for sure, but just some I wanted to highlight. So CTE classrooms, we have a little bit of an opportunity to do more of these things. We're not all lecture and notes and just drilling. So we already have that advantage, but we need to make sure we're taking advantage of it. I think one big challenge was obviously remote learning, because that may have made some students a little less interested or disinterested. That was a challenge to all of us and to the student engagement, and increased perhaps some student boredom and complacency. So it does make it a little tougher to get that back and bring students back into the fold. But I think anything we can do will help their engagement, help their interest, and that'll help us in turn teaching. James, next slide. So just some more opportunities on increasing student engagement. I think we think about these a lot as we're getting into the school year, but it's a good time to mention them and think about them at the semester, especially for first-year teachers, that you could share with them, because the journey again is tough. They've had a break, but now it's another chunk of time before spring break and the end of the year. So, for example, maintain procedures and routines. A clean, well-oiled machine, a clean classroom, a well-organized classroom definitely helps keep students on track. And on the right-hand side there in the evening gown, that was at prom time, that was my class aide, my very quiet class aide, Maggie. She's a mannequin I got donated when I was in the classroom. One of the classes I taught was fashion marketing, and actually stamped on the mannequin was Maggie. And she had a name tag and she was part of class. I told students she was pretty quiet. She needs a tan, she needs a little color, but she's using too much SPF. But there was a stool next to her, and students could turn in assignments. If we had anything written, anything that needed to be turned in a project, you would just always turn it into Maggie. there were clothes in the classroom, students would change the clothes on the mannequin as part about learning about fashion and fashion marketing, and then perhaps market the outfit or something like that. So anything you can do to bring and remind mentees, anything they can do to bring industry into the classroom is certainly going to help and just strengthen that opportunity and learning. 1 second, guys. Like I said on the last slide, that easing into learning will certainly help build relationships. Anything we can do to build a relationship between students, teacher-student relationships. Frequent discussions. If there are talking partners, if there's a time when students can turn, 2 students, 3 students can have a little conversation in class, maybe they're explaining back to you what you've explained. Can they tell you what you've explained in their own words? Can they share with each other how what they've gleaned from a portion of a lesson? And then all participation responses. I think James has shown us with poll EV, yes, poll EV or Mentimeter as we've seen before, and there are other types of online forums. You can get interaction from students. It could be as simple as even, I've got something old here, hopefully this paddle, a yes/no paddle that students can make and make for other classes. And you can get responses from students. Thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down. And I know you've got others as well too, but you can get interactions from students. And sometimes those are students that don't seem like they're participating, but might participate in something that's more the group is participating. I can kind of skip over a couple here. Talked about small group instruction and just the opportunity to work with smaller groups of students and get input from students, and then they can share those out as well too. We've talked about cultural in that top right. One of our culinary classes was working on some culturally appropriate cooking and learning about the culture, as well as a lesson about making something that represented the culture. And then a favorite, giving students choice, giving them an opportunity to have a choice of assignments. If it's like a end of term assignment, a menu of assignments, the type of thing they can choose from, that will make them perhaps more interested in that assignment if they have some choice or vote in it. So just some opportunities to reflect on there. And I know, like I said, I know you've got others, but a good time to share that with mentees and get them thinking about it as well too. James, next slide.
Okay, and we have this video here that found through the TCEA. It's the Texas Computer Education Association, and I follow them online, and they have a lot of good resources. And this one led to an Edutopia, which in itself is a pretty nice website with some nice videos and resources as well. And with that, we have a video which I'll actually put the YouTube link for you in case you would like to have it. So I'll put that down. And even though the title does say 4 steps to help teachers reset this summer, it could be for any type of break. It could be, Christmas break, any holiday break, spring break, coming back for the new year, and so on. So a lot of good information, and I'll go ahead and put that through right now.
Reflection is a key component of professional growth for educators, but making time for meaningful self-reflection can feel all but impossible amid the flurry of the school day. The end of the year provides a great opportunity to look back on standout moments with students, reflect on challenges you've overcome, and celebrate a year's worth of growth. Most teachers are exhausted by May or June, but carving out a little time for taking stock now, while it's fresh in your mind, will set you up for success when it's time to head back into the classroom. High-quality classroom materials can have a big impact on student learning and engagement. Take 5 or 10 minutes to review your most important materials, lesson plans, visual aids, or even the four walls of your classroom. Try sitting in or envisioning your classroom, taking a look around, and asking yourself questions like, what displayed student work stands out to me? Or, what spaces in my room best support student learning? Keeping your reflection focus narrow will simplify the process and prevent it from feeling overwhelming. Research has shown that writing things down in a journal or on sticky notes encodes information more deeply in your memory. Using the note-taking strategy of your choice, allow yourself to ponder deeper questions like, what do I know now compared to the beginning of the school year? Or, what's one thing I'd like to do differently next year? Consider storing your notes in an email you schedule to send to yourself just before school starts, so they're easily accessible when you need them. Sharing reflections about your teaching and learning experiences with another educator can improve your practice, and theirs too. Extend an invite to a colleague to collaboratively reflect and support each other while sharing your insights on the past school year. This exchange not only helps build stronger bonds and solidarity with your peers, but provides a unique opportunity to gain perspective on your goals and challenges. Taking a moment to celebrate successes and acknowledge lessons learned will help you return to your classroom with a fresh lens on teaching and learning. Tuck your notes away somewhere safe, and then enjoy some much-deserved time to rest and recharge. When the new school year rolls around, you will already have a list of tight takeaways from the previous one to help you spring into action.
Okay, so hopefully those helped you out. Obviously, with things like sticky notes, you could also use your phone. One thing, if you're really good with, say, your Android or your Apple device, is that there's the notes section. You could definitely use those as stickies as well, and you could set them up as reminders in your calendar. So there's a lot of great ways to do that as well. So some really good steps right there for you. Oops,
I like the sticky note idea. I'm good with the
Yeah.
sticky notes.
Or just plain sticky notes. If you're old school, that's fine. Okay, so we have another poll, and we're going to use Pollevi once again. And I'm going to show you how I go from one presentation in the poll to the other, to show you how easy it works. But once again, we have another question. So whether you've planned anything in advance, you're just mulling over something in your head with you and your mentees or your admin or your other teachers, what is your 2023 mentoring or teaching reboot or resolution? So with that, you're going to go back to Pollevi. I went ahead and put the information once again in the chat, so you have the link there. Or if you're using your phone, you could text 37607 and then type James Hattar 339, and then you can put in your response once it allows you to join the session. So with that, let's go ahead and show you how this works. So this is the last section of the poll that we just used. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the next one.
And to James's point on the free account, you have to switch between
Yes. Switch between the different questions, yeah. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and go to my activities, and I have another poll waiting. Those of you who are about to put in your responses, you'll notice it says I have to activate it. So as soon as I click it, it should activate immediately. And the nice thing about this, and I'll show you how it looks after we start getting some responses, is that you could change the look of your presentation for your poll. You can go ahead and change the color, add images, play with the fonts. You can present certain ones, or they call it a spotlight, certain responses. And the more that keeps coming in, the more you can scroll down and play around with that. So for 2023 mentoring or teaching reboot or resolution, not to procrastinate. Okay. Any other responses? Anything that you're thinking of trying to play around with? Any more hands-on activities? Any projects? Implementing at least one new technique. Great. Give it a second. Be very organized for my mentees so they have a firm schedule they can count on, including a one night every other week and open Zoom for all 8 to come together. Yeah. Extensive to-do lists with clear deadlines. Yeah. And that's something you could put in a sticky note or a calendar. More professional development. And you can see I can scroll as we're going along. We have a teacher Canvas class, and I have access to post stuff while I'm posting to my mentee, posting to all the teachers. Independent reflection for mentees. Working with mentees earlier in the semester than last semester. Started late, yeah. That happens. Encouraging new mentees to try at least one new lesson. Yeah, I mean, when I started teaching, I had a lot of teachers I got to work with, even if they weren't in the same industry that I, because I came from a healthcare background. And sometimes I got a lot of great ideas for lessons or hands-on activities, especially about professionalism, that would definitely help out. One thing that I started to do was to get students to, as soon as they come to class and they're on time, that was equivalent to, say, clocking in on the job. And so they would get like extra credit points for that. If they let me know, like you would a boss, that you were going to be late or you're not going to be in, then they would get some credit. So some credit would be better than no credit. So this way they kept that professionalism going, especially if your program happens to have like a community classroom or an internship portion of the class. This way that professionalism goes from the classroom onto the site. Create a schedule, stick to it. Encouraging live or virtual guest speakers. That is a great one, and we're going to bring that up in a bit, because February, if you guys don't know, is CTE month. So we'll discuss a little bit about that. Okay, so any questions on Poll EV? I just wanted you to check out something different that's not necessarily Kahoot or Mentimeter or using Google Slides. There's a lot of different things you could do with this. And again, there's an app for this, Poll EV, that you could use. And again, it's free, and I'm just using the free version. So you can get away with a lot of good stuff just using the free version alone. Okay, so
James, can you explain a little bit about, there's a couple,
Sure.
more than a couple different ways you can see your responses?
Yes, I can. So if I go to this is the poll that's still active. I did not deactivate it. All I have to do is go up here and activate or deactivate. So it's still active, and what I can do is I can go to visual settings. I can play around with the font, the color, the background, so on. But right now I have it on text wall. The first poll that we had, I had it on a cluster. So if I were to go ahead and change it into a word cloud, this is what you get. Bit messy, but does the trick. You can play around with that with your students.
Or maybe some more single word answers.
Yeah, single word answers, come up with a nice, and then print that out. And then you have the cluster, which we did in the beginning, and then again, you can scroll down, and if I click on one, it becomes the spotlight quote. And if I go to spotlight, it gives certain responses amount of seconds to be read before it goes on to the next one automatically, so I don't have to scroll down. It just does it on its own, and I can set the timer to that, so this way you can give more time to certain quotes over others, and a lot of things you can play around with on this. And again, I'm just using the free version, Poll EV. And those of you that probably signed in by clicking the link, it probably gave you an option to create an account if you want, so completely up to you. And if you ever have any questions about Poll EV or anything like that, reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you out. Okay. And with that, there we go. David.
Thank you, James. So we have, on December 31st, finished Q2 of the school year, calendar Q2. So need you to be making sure that you're inputting your information on your mentor logs that are in your Google folder. We do have a due date of January 15th on those, but that also builds us a little time here at CRY-ROP to get things in within the next couple of weeks. So if you could please make sure you're working on those mentor logs, we will contact you to go over those. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or James, and we can help you with those. If it's the form, how you're putting things in, hours, anything like that. And you can contact us via email or telephone. Both work just fine. James, next slide. We are at the January webinar already, and then the next webinar will be Tuesday, February the 7th, and that February is CTE month. It's always CTE month for us, but when we're actually able to recognize it and shout it a little louder is next month, and that leads us to two things. James, next slide. Next month is the CTE conference, Educating for Careers in Sacramento. James and I will be there, and we'll be presenting on Monday, February the 27th. It's session 3, the afternoon that day. And the presentation will be, if you don't feed the teachers, they'll eat the students. We don't want that, obviously, too much paperwork if they eat the students. So hopefully if you're there, you can come see us. James says he'll autograph stuff. He doesn't have to. Okay.
David will take pictures for a price.
No, I will take pictures, no price. It's all right. And James, next slide, please. Most importantly, February is CTE month, where we can recognize and shout from the rooftops what we're proud of about career technical education, and something to think about. And I'll be sending something within the next month and see what you're doing as well too. How are you, your district, your mentees, your students, how are you going to promote CTE, your class, your industry sector to students? And new teachers probably wouldn't know as they roll into their first February that February is CTE month. Are they going to do social media posts about it? Is their campus going to do something? Is their district going to do something? James, do you want to talk a little bit about the hashtags that you put on there?
Yeah, so how many of you guys knew that February was CTE month? Okay, so yeah, every year February is CTE month. So one thing that I'm in charge of is social media, whether for CRY-ROP or for CTE Teach. And so with that, a great way to promote not just your class, not just your projects or your students in action, but and this is a great way going back to what was mentioned earlier about virtual guest speakers or just guest speakers in general, or maybe people for your advisories, is promote on social media. If you're not the social media person, who in your district or your school is that social media person? Start planning now and get them some stuff for them, like pictures of students in action. It could be older pictures, it could be recent pictures. I think Jim mentioned something about a project that he was working on. If it's students working on that project, take some pictures of them in action, obviously with their permission and parents' permission. But that's something you could post, and then you can put the hashtag of #CTE month, career tech ed, proud to be CTE, a lot of different variations. I'm actually going to go ahead and put a link to the ACTE online website, which has a lot of information about CTE month. It even has a Zoom background that you could use for your meetings. So for the month of February, have that Zoom background as your February Zoom background for the whole month. Promote CTE. When you're on social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, Facebook, and you can tag businesses. So for example, if I was an auto teacher and I have students working on an electric vehicle, I might want to tag Tesla on that. I might want to tag Ford if it's a hybrid, or Polestar or Volvo. And this way, if they like what you're doing, this is where you could start building relationships and getting hopefully a guest speaker or an advisor for your advisories. So it's a great way to promote to parents what the students are doing. How many times have you heard a parent not know what CTE is? or whether they even knew their child was in a CTE class. Promote to the colleges, especially if your class is articulated with college credit or dual enrollment, whatever your district happens to do. Also, get your community leaders. You're the mayor of your city, any constituents in the community. Tag them on CTE month. Get them to be involved. And basically, it's a great way to not just promote CTE, your industry sector, your students, your class, and your school. And that's a really great way to do that. We'll be talking more about this, but if you want some ideas to mull over, that link that I just added could definitely benefit you, and I'll have some resources as well for the next presentation, specifically on CTE month. So reach out to me or David if you want some ideas, and it's a really great way to just show everyone what you guys are doing. Don't be the best kept secret. Let everyone know what you're doing. Okay. And with that, speaking of social media, like us, follow us, subscribe. If you haven't been following us already, I try to put as much resources that I find up on our site. Sometimes I retweet things that I find that are really interesting. We have the Mentor Mondays, so we have some quotes. Definitely steal that if you'd like. And we're on Insta, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. We also have audio podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, and also on Spotify. YouTube, we try to put up some videos. Like, for example, there'll be a video of the presentation of the webinar you guys are in, and that's a great way for people that could not make it to get caught up on some of the stuff that we're doing, especially if they couldn't make it. Again, cteteach.com is our website, and you'll find a lot of stuff in there, events, our social medias, and so on. Okay.
Sorry, James. And like James said, just like we've done in the previous months, we will share today's webinar, the recording of it, the bit.ly, the infographics, sorry, I keep saying this backwards, Poll EV. We want to share new technology. Hopefully it's new to you as well too, or just options and opportunities that you can share with your mentees to hopefully make their journey easier and smoother and rewarding.
And if there's something that's been working for you, resource-wise or technology-wise, share it with us, and we'd love to share it with everyone else. So kind of keep that in mind. We want to make sure that we're all supporting each other and making sure that you guys have something that you can definitely work with. So yeah, start thinking about CTE month. What plans do you have? Talk to your admin, talk to your mentees, find out, talk to other teachers, see if there's something you guys want to work together on, and just kind of put it together. So that could be a great way to promote it as well, especially if you have 2 social media posts going on or multiple social media posts. And other things, you can have students involved to promote CTE for CTE month on the quad area. During break, maybe having them create flyers on top of that. So really great ways that you can kind of mix it up for CTE month. And then on Mentor Monday, so just the last one, I found a really great quote from Michelle Obama. And it says, "One person might be senior and be wiser and have more experience, but I've learned a lot from the people I mentor." So I can't tell you how many times, even when I was managing pharmacies, that I would talk to brand new pharmacy technicians, and because of their experience working in another industry, that I learned a lot from them. And I definitely learned from every teacher that I ever worked with, especially when I seemed like I was lost and I didn't know what I was doing, that there was always some teacher next door that I can talk to and just kind of get some information and get some advice. And I try to share that with other teachers as well, because you never know who you're talking to and their experience, and you'll learn a lot. I mean, we're always learning, so it's nonstop. So I love that quote. Steal it, share it with everyone. And with that, we're not going to let you off easy. Oh, Christy Dorff wrote student engagement ideas. Yeah, that's awesome. And then exit ticket. So type in the chat something you learned, whether you learned it from here or you learned it during holiday or last month or last year. Share something with us that you have learned that has helped you with your teaching, with your mentors, mentees, and so on, with your admin. Admin, if you're here, tell us what you've learned from your teachers, your mentors, and mentees. And we'll type it in the chat. Or if you want to get off on unmute yourself, speak your mind. And we also have our contact information if you want to get a hold of Melissa, Megan, our support specialist, David, or myself. You'll have our emails, you have our phone numbers. Reach out, please. Yeah.
I love the poll EV that you just showed us, and I'm like really excited to show my CTE teachers.
Awesome. And you can also play around with it on the app too. And I really like the fact that if you want to involve your students, I know that I tell my students, put your phones away when you're in class, but I also have them use it as a research tool. So at the same time, I'll be like, okay, take your phones out and now go ahead and text to this number a response to this question. And it works really well too, especially those students that might be shy and they don't feel comfortable talking out in the classroom. So it's a great way for them to also put in their information. And what's also great about that, and poll EV, you can also block out certain words. So in case somebody gets a little feisty, you can block certain things out. So it's a really good tool. So I've thought of it. You get a student that might want to play games, but it happens. Okay, so we got some good ones in here. From mentor training, lots of good ideas to do short lessons. Yeah, short attention spans, you don't want to sit around for a long time. Being reminded that we need to make sure our new students are comfortable in our rooms. They don't know the procedures. Yeah. Okay. Carrie's going to use this with mentees this week. Important to review and reflect continually. True. Patrick, common sense was in my Christmas stocking. Best gift ever. I like that. We should put that in the mentor quote. Polls, student engagement, and getting students refocused back on learning after break. Yeah, especially after breaks. You'll be in convention and presenting. Oh, yeah. I forgot we were doing that too until David reminded me. And the social media and podcasts. Yes. Please follow, all that good stuff. Ideas at the start of the new semester to get students re-engaged. Robin says, a mentee gave me advice on how to make home phone calls easier. For every bad phone call, make a praise phone call. Yeah, that's true. You don't want everything to be negative, right? I started doing a group message with my mentees. We all give ideas to each other. We learn from each other. That's great. In fact, kind of going back to technology, if you guys are into that, if you have an Apple device, they just put out a brand new whiteboard sharing app that got put up with the new software. It's completely free. It's probably already on your phone or your iPad. And basically what it is that you can set up like a vision board or a whiteboard, send to people that are in your contacts, so other teachers or mentees or mentors, and then they can go ahead and start putting ideas, and it could be like a live slide where people can draw on it, add images and so on, and then or even text or type on it. And it's a really great way to just share and keep everything going. So it's really good. There's a lot of ways you could do this through electronic means. David, am I missing anything else?
No, if you would take us to probably all of our faces.
Yes, if the case of
And if there's any questions, you can put them in chat. You can unmute. That will conclude us for today.
See you guys. Have a good one.
Have a good night.